Hello, welcome to the Today Show, Toronto. I am Unstoppable Tracy Schmidt, your host, and I am very excited. There is a huge, magnificent event happening in Canada, and it doesn't only happen in Canada, it is international, but it is coming to Toronto in May. And I have Ian Forsyth, the owner of Can East Shows and the producer of the Abilities Expo that's coming May 13th and 14th at the International Center. So please stay tuned for some extraordinary details by this magnificently huge industry show. It's going to be a magnificent guest today. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, I'm Casey McKay, and be sure to watch Press Box on the Disability Channel. It's some great stuff we're covering, so be sure to tune in. Again, I'm Casey McKay, reporting for the Disability Channel, and I'll see you soon.
Hi, this is Rocky Blyer, and you're watching the Disability Channel showcasing abilities.
Hello, welcome to the Today Show. My name is Unstoppable Tracy Schmidt, and I am so excited to have the producer of the Abilities Expo Toronto, Ian Forsyth, joining me today. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Oh, Ian, I am so humbled to have you as a guest today. I know that you have been running the show for 3 years, Abilities Expo Toronto, here in Toronto. And I am so excited that it's coming back. Yay! Ready for the show. I've always found it so invaluable for myself as a person with a disability. And, you must have some extraordinary highlights that you recall from past shows. Are you willing to share one?
Absolutely. But something you said there that's when you say we've had 3 shows, and this still makes my brain hurt, but all things normal, this would be our 6th show
Right?
because it has been 3. But,
Oh,
in general, it feels so great to be producing an event like this. I do all kinds of events, but to bring the disability community together in this manner, and I'll share one story with you that really early on that defined things for me. I was standing while the show was open. I was standing on the show floor, and I watched a young lad ride a bicycle for the first time, and it was just, even now, how many years later, my spine still tingles thinking of the absolute delight on this boy's face. He'd never ridden a bike before, and now he was. So that's
oh my,
always the thing that has stuck with me through the years um, in terms of why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing.
oh yeah. Now I have goosebumps, which is great, Ian. So, Ian, I don't believe it, but I imagine there might be 1 or 2 viewers that don't know about the Abilities Expo Toronto. And it is horrific. It's supposed to be the 6th one. And so now it's going to be the 3rd one. But focusing on the positive and that can do attitude that Can East Shows has with the Abilities Expo Toronto. Can you tell our listeners what is the Abilities Expo? Like what kind of things are involved?
Well, really, I mean, it brings together, it's a resource. And I think that's the thing that's most important. And the resources just aren't in the vendors. They're in the workshops. They're in our demo areas at Parasport with all their sports that they put together. But I'm kind of bring another experience to you that tells me a lot about why we do what we did. I was at one of the expos in the US and met an exhibitor there that was actually originally an attendee. And it was their daughter, who I think was about 18 by that time.
Yeah.
And they went, I think, to the first one in Houston. And they said it was like this big black hole in the sky totally opened up, and it just opened up a whole new world for them in terms of how they could help their daughter. So that's, I mean, it's kind of a general answer to that, but it really is what it's all about. It's such an upbeat, positive atmosphere as
Yeah.
well. It can be very loud sometimes, depending on what's going on, but very, very cheerful. Lots of smiling faces, and everybody's just excited to be there. Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's the most important thing.
It's funny, as a person who was born with a disability, a lot of people thought that my parents or myself that I know everything about all disabilities and all resources.
Right.
And then don't always share what they do know with me, or maybe they don't know either. And the reality is that's probably the biggest gap. It's not so much that there aren't resources, and that's certainly a struggle too in things like transportation and funding, but there are a gazillion resources out there. But individuals like myself and other people with disabilities and young families with children or newly acquired disability, they don't have the resources. So it is magnificent that the Abilities Expo Toronto is out there. And so now we're celebrating and communicating, and everybody and their brother listening today, please let everybody know that this resource packed show, the Abilities Expo Toronto at the International Center, is coming. And you want to check it out because there are so many things that I have no idea about. And I'm immersed in the community, and I learn something new every single time I go to the Ability Expo Toronto.
Well, and
You
it's
know,
funny, as good as Google is,
mm,
it's something like this does bring things forward to people that they hadn't thought of, didn't know existed, and it brings it through in a very personal, face-to-face manner, which is so important as well.
yes, especially in this world, right? People are
Yes.
feeling vulnerable or raw or in a great need. And given, as you said, it should be the sixth year. It's the third year. And so there's been 3 years of isolation and no information swapping, no resource finding, and no face-to-face contact to be able to see where those pain points are, and so that we can point people in the right direction and turn people into like a breath of refueling with resources out there. But the other thing I love about the Abilities Expo Toronto is it is also, as you say, smiles, because there are friends there and you bump into people you haven't seen
Mhm.
in forever. And that was the first 2 years. So this year, it's going to be like a massive reunion for probably 50% of the people that are returning. And then the other 50% of the people that are just going to be getting to know some new folk.
And certainly, and I mean, that even goes with the vendors, right? Because there's been very few industry events over the last 2 years. So it really very much is, it always is kind of a same time next year scenario, but this is
Yeah.
this is a real coming together. And I think that with a 3 year gap between the expos, there's going to be a pent up demand or enthusiasm, maybe is even a better way of putting it, that people are just going to be clamoring to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah. And I think both are true. I think there's a massive enthusiasm, but I also think, the pandemic has impacted everyone, tall or small, with a disability, without a disability, tremendously. But I don't know that the world understands. And this is also filmed internationally. It's Bell 5 for Toronto, but it's so great you mentioned your US show as well. But that there's also people with disabilities around the world that have been impacted in even greater, more significant ways. And
Most
a lot
certainly.
of resources have had to be cut back, and staffing and funding. And so it's going to be great to celebrate what's available now, what's coming back, where are we like taking off and thriving all over again. So this
100%.
is, yeah.
It's going to be
So
great.
Ian, we've talked so much about how fabulous the atmosphere is that I have yet to ask you about all of the vendors. And so please, listeners, stay tuned. I need to take a short break, And we're going to be right back after these messages with the Today Show with incredible guest Ian Forsyth, the producer of the Abilities Expo Toronto, coming May 13th and 14th to the International Center. So stay tuned to find out which exhibitors are going to be there and what kinds of events and shows. That was one of my favorite parts in the past is a great display. It's kind of like an entertaining venue, like going to the theater as well, which is not the intention, but it really is full of activations. So I can't wait to hear more about the specifics of this year's show. So please stay tuned. Ian Forsyth and Unstoppable Tracy Schmidt are going to be right back with the Today Show in just a moment.
Hi, this is Dave Stevens with the Disability Channel.
An inability to break out. I'm sitting by the door on the second floor, losing my 7-year war. It's not an illusion, so why the exclusion?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's about you. So,
You say you're a disability dynamo.
Joining me, and welcome to this beautiful Travelers Championship.
I only want one accolade from you.
So my story is unique, it's amazing, but it's not anything that you guys don't have inside of you. I'm not a hero, I'm not anybody special. I'm just this guy without legs that went out, and I just did it.
Stats outweigh the Democrats, the diplomats, and the bureaucrats.
This is probably your first interview down on the ground on your butt and stuff like that?
First time ever,
All
baby.
right.
Eliminate and validate and validate and validate.
Stay with us and the Disability Channel.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Unstoppable Tracy, your host of the Today Show in Toronto. Unbelievably over the moon to be celebrating after a 3-year wait. The Abilities Expo Toronto is returning. And it couldn't come at a more necessary time. And I am so pleased to be welcoming Ian Forsyth, owner of the Can East Shows, who is producing the Abilities Expo. Welcome, Ian, to the Today Show right after these messages we just had.
Thank you very much. The only issue I have, Tracy, is I just need a little bit more enthusiasm from you.
Can you tell I'm really looking forward to the Abilities
Yes, for
Expo?
sure. Yes, I certainly
And
am
I'm
too.
not alone, Ian. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Anybody I'm talking to that's been before is really looking forward to coming back. But Ian, myself, and all the people that have been before, and a whole bunch of people that are just finding out about the show right here, right now, are really curious. So who are we going to see at the show, and what kinds of things? Are you able to leak some top secret vendors and events that are going to happen? And this can be where people hear it first today?
For sure, I'm happy to. I mean, in terms of the vendors generally, there's a lot of the ones that people will expect to see, like accessible vehicles, catheters, standing devices, travel. We've got quite a number of travel exhibitors, which is great. Accessible travel, obviously. Quite a bit of rehab and physio and therapy as well. Scooters. We actually have a couple of law firms with us as well. Employment, accessible design. I mean, it's wheelchairs, of course, and the great accessories that go with that. And, touching back on my original comment about what inspired me so much is we've got a few exhibitors with bicycles, adaptive and tricycles and that sort of thing. So really does cover the gamut quite nicely. And of course, there's and a number of service organizations that are at the show as well. So, things like the Canadian Helen Keller Center will be there, and quite a number of others. And, certainly the best thing is to go to abilitiesexpotoronto.com to the exhibitor list, and it's active there. It's being added to on a daily basis, so people can certainly check it out.
abilitiesexpotoronto.com. And that's abilities, that's plural, and Toronto is spelled out fully, not TRTOR, but TORONTO.
Yeah.
abilitiestoronto.com.
And then, some real neat kind of specifics. And again, you're always cautious with this because it's kind of like doing the thank you speech after winning an award. You don't want to leave anybody out. But, for instance, the Canadian Spinal Research Organization is going to be launching a new app called Fuel Service, which is quite intriguing in that it will allow, it's very challenging, as we know, for people with certain disabilities to get fuel. And so this app will, first of all, let you know what stations, fuel stations have additional people. You can let them know when you're going to arrive, so they've got somebody available. So that's kind of cool. This is one that they just joined us, but it's called Bella's Bump Us, and they build pediatric wheelchairs at no cost to the family, other than shipping costs, and they rely solely on donations. It's something that started in the US and is now in Canada. That was kind of a spine-tingling moment for me as well.
Bella's Bump Us.
Bella's Bump Us, yes.
Bella's Bump Us, okay.
Bella's in plural, but it's just great. Toronto Rehab Institute is going to be there, and maybe not for the reason that you would think. They're working on a project to make our national parks in Canada, so that's great. We've got Freedom's Wings there, and a lot of people probably are aware of them, but you can go in a glider and just enjoy the experience, or you can get flight training. So that's really, really cool.
I've done Freedom's Wings.
Oh, you have? Great.
I've got purchases for my car, and I'm an outdoor enthusiast. I got my education in outdoor recreation, and so love that they're going to do accessible paths. And oh my gosh. And then as a child, funding was such a big deal, being born this way. So we could never get chairs funded or my prosthetics funded. So it's so great that Bella's Bump Us is going, things that you just have no idea about unless we come to the Abilities Expo. Oh my gosh. And I know the list is endless. Can I nudge you to share a few more secrets or vendors?
Absolutely.
Want to shout out?
We've got a VAC Plus chair, which is a motorized stair climbing chair, which is very, very cool. And they're new to the Abilities Expo. We've got Handicup, gentleman by the name of Chris Stegas. He's got some wheelchair accessories. He is a wheelchair user, and he's very, very enthusiastic, and has come up with some great inventions. And kind of in that vein as well, we've got vendor ideas for independent living, and he has mounting systems and electronics for accessibility. So for your things like your games and electronic games and such, and he's got some really neat stuff as well. And we've got Motor City Motion, who has the Action Track Chair, which is an all-terrain wheelchair. So let's say some really cool stuff. And I know I haven't covered it all, but to find out more, you know where you have to go.
Yes, abilitiesexpotoronto.com.
Yes.
And better yet, show up May 13 and 14th to the International Center, which is fabulous. Now, I also know, and by the way, I've been lucky enough to be with Freedom Wings. I've been on a plane and I've taken a lesson, which I loved, and they're amazing. But you've named at least a half a dozen things that I had no idea about, and I think it's really cool. And I think my highlighted memory, on top of my own vehicle and seeing friends, that I haven't seen and I always see them at the Abilities Expo in the vendors and in the aisles, which is also true. But I really thought it was so cool seeing the exoskeleton, the ability to stand for people with some paralysis, and maybe they're new and so they can maintain some muscle mass. And there's just some really futuristic, out there, phenomenal pieces. And then the fire evac, like, I can't tell you, like, I live on the 4th floor here, but I was just in a conference. I'm a keynote speaker, and I was speaking for the 911 dispatchers, the National Emergency Number Association in the States. And I was on the 14th floor, and the hotel had electricity problems for 2 days. And I was trapped in my room on the 14th floor for multiple of days. And so the fact that we've got the evacuation chair folks there so that people can think for their businesses, and that could be someone with a broken leg, and that could be somebody actively aging. It's not just, I'm talking a lot about being a child with a disability, but it really is relevant for everyone, everywhere. It's your neighbor, it's your aging parent, it's your aging self. And so it's people with disabilities, but also the whole community inclusively of some universal access happening out there. Great for strollers. There's so many pieces of the puzzle that I think everyone should go, including the community of people with disabilities, either providers or families.
I agree with you.
And so I have a gazillion more questions for you, but it's commercial time again. Ian, can I ask you to hold on, and our listeners, please stay tuned right after these messages to the Today Show. I'll be returning for the last and final piece and a secret reveal from Ian about the Abilities Expo Toronto right after these messages. And get your pens ready so that you can write down where to find it and when and how, right after these messages with Unstoppable Tracy and the phenomenal producer of Abilities Expo Toronto, Ian Forsyth, in just a moment.
All about inclusion and really giving everyone a fair say.
Welcome to the Today Show. This is our flagship show. I am Unstoppable Tracy.
I am Zach Damon.
It is a pleasure to be here. I am excited. What is up?
We have a great show today.
Jay Stoyan here for the Disability Channel, the world's only inclusive channel for and by persons with disabilities.
Get ready to be inspired, everyone.
We have people watching from all over the world, but also all over Ontario.
We also take a concerted attention in the veterans community.
In moments of stress and trauma, we can get a hold of ourselves.
To help make a difference for people with disabilities, to show people how to love themselves or their disability.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me, giving this platform for myself and other people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this episode of the Disability Channel Detroit. Please tune in next time.
Welcome to the Today Show. If you are just tuning in, I am Unstoppable Tracy Schmidt, your host, and I am here, unbelievably, with the finally returning after several years Abilities Expo Toronto. And I am especially blessed to be hosting Ian Forsyth. And he is the grand poobah. He is the producer of the Abilities Expo Toronto, and he's also the owner of Can East Shows. He produces a ton of shows, but we are extraordinarily lucky that he is dialing it up times 10 for us in the abilities world of the Abilities Expo Toronto. And so, Ian, thank you for hanging out till after these messages. Before I ask you more questions, did any thoughts or things come up that you want to share over the break?
Well, certainly and this may be something we're going to get to, but I do want to chat about our workshops that we're having at the Abilities Expo and our demonstration area, and of course our sports zone. So we can certainly dive into that if you like.
Yes. And so for folks that might have missed it, we talked about a 90 plus vendors are going to be there. And so you visit the website abilitiesexpotoronto.com for the vendors list. But I am really excited about this next piece. This is my favorite segment. So Ian, please do share some of these secrets that we may or may not know about that is also part of the Abilities Expo Toronto.
For sure. And I'll start off with the workshops. So these are actual sit-down presentations that are chock full of information. So I'll go through a few of them. I won't get into any great detail, but we've got a workshop on trauma recovery and community integration that is being brought to us by the complex injury rehab. We've got service dogs, which is always a hit. People love that. And really what you need to know about service dogs and working with them. So that'll be great. You touched on your love of outdoors. Well, we have a workshop called Outdoors for All, which is being brought to us by the Chronic Explorer. So that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing that one. March and Dimes will be doing a presentation on all their multiple programs that they have to offer. And we've got somebody from the CRA joining us, and they're going to be just talking about the benefits and credits that are available. Disability tax credit. So we're delighted to have them. We've also got Julie Sawchuk from Sawchuk Accessible Solutions in terms of design and construction and renovation ideas. So that's a really key one. So I'm looking forward to that one. Making mindfulness meaningful. So a little bit esoteric one there, but very important, particularly after what everybody has gone through over the last 2 years. It's really been tough on mental health, as we all know. Building your employability. So that's being brought to us by Access to Accessibility, that organization. So that's going to be great. We touched on travel. So there's going to be somebody doing a presentation on accessible travel. And that wraps up the workshop side of things. But there's so much more going on.
Yes.
I touched on the sports zone that we'll have that Parasport Ontario was presenting. So, I mean, this is just a few things, but there's roller sledge hockey that people can participate in. There's wheelchair basketball, sitting volleyball, and all the equipment is there. All you have to do is bring yourself and you're all set. And then lots of fun things in our demo area. Lots of fun things. Dancing. We've got actually an international dance company that's going to be there. And again, they'll get some participation going there as well. So be ready. Floor curling, accessible and adaptable yoga. You can see it's all about movement, right? And meditative movement and calming your heart rate. So again, that kind of feeling about settling ourselves down. We also will have the service dogs in that area as well, and it'll be more of a Q&A type of situation. And we've got a couple of others that we have. Cruiser Sports will also be there with their various sports demonstrating and some participation. And then to finish off, we're going to have artistic swimming from Ontario Artistic Swimming. So that'll be great. But you can see it's an activity area. It's movement and all that sort of thing, and it's always popular, and there's always lots of laughing, and and lots of noise coming from that, which is great.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much fun. I remember the dancing with people who were using wheelchairs and all sorts of different disabilities. And it was very pro. It was phenomenal. It was like I would buy tickets to see that at the Mirvish Center,
Yeah.
downtown Toronto. And here we get it as a place to interact and enjoy the show. Like it is worth going to the show for that alone, all these incredible activities. And for me, because I could swim, I could fall out of a boat. And because I could fall out of a boat, because I could swim, I could learn to sail and I could learn other activities. And recreation was my conduit to being able to get into teachers college, because I ended up teaching some of those sports and it gave me some experience. And because I got into teachers college, I was able to teach in well over 40 countries internationally.
Wow.
A big traveler. And it was my source of income. And so sometimes we think recreation is good for the soul and the mind, but it's good for the soul and the mind and mindfulness, but it also ends up being like a big relationship builder for future job interviews. And it's also a competency builder for skill building for getting into various jobs. And it's also given me, I went for a job interview with State Farm Insurance at 16. And because I could ski, they hired me, right? And whereas I went for 100 interviews and nobody hired me because they didn't think as a person with a disability I could do the job. Right. So often when you can take part in this fun, playful, interactive exhibits and just lighten the mood and have a big smile after being locked up for a couple years, or should I say locked down, it's that and right? Relationship building, soul building, and tons of fun and tons of talent. Ian,
confidence and community.
Massive. I love that.
Yes.
Confidence and that I have the confidence that if I can do this, I can do anything. That's huge. Confidence and community. And so, Ian, as a final goodbye to all of our magnificent listeners that are now all burning in their seats to come, even the accountants that don't have a disability want to come and learn about the CRA lessons for their clients. Where do they find you? What's the final, remind us when and where and how, piece of the puzzle before we say goodbye?
Absolutely. So it's the website is abilitiesexpotoronto.com. The expo is at the International Center on Friday, May 13th and Saturday, May 14th. Show hours 10 to 5 each day. We're in Hall 5 at the International Center, and delighted to announce that TTC Wheel-Trans service will be available as well.
Fantastic. That's a huge win. That's wonderful.
100%.
But, Ian, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your massively busy schedule. The show is less than a month away now. And so I know you're like burning the keyboard at all hours, making everything happen. And so thank you for visiting. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the Abilities Expo on May 13th and 14th. Check out the website, abilitiesexpotoronto.com. With the Today Show, Ian Forsyth, Abilities Expo Toronto producer, and Unstoppable Tracy Schmidt, your host, saying thank you for joining us on the Today Show.
And thank you for having me.